Today is the DIY challenge and the theme is winter, and for my video I am doing 5 winter themed projects that all have a neutral palette. There will be a playlist that is linked down below in the description box, so make sure you go and check out all the other crafters here on YouTube who will be sharing their beautiful projects, and a special thank you to everyone who is participating on the playlist. This DIY is so beautiful and so simple. Now I thought about doing 3 of these, but funny enough my daughter was begging me for one of the bells, so I'm gonna just do one. But you could cluster these together and do a really beautiful DIY with them. So we're gonna just do one for today, and I'm just gonna show you the possibility with these bells. So it's really simple. You're going to just keep hot gluing and coiling it around and around. I ended up using about 2 ropes on this, and once you get all the way down and around and through, I went ahead and took a bell from the Dollar Tree, added some twine, brought it up to the top, and then hot glued it into place. Now I will tell you that when you're doing these projects, make sure that you're sticking the rope as close as you can to each other. That's going to make it look more high end without seeing the red popping through. Then I repeated the same thing with one of the brown ropes from the Dollar Tree. I really liked the 2 different rope tones, and I just wrapped it really tightly, and you saw earlier that I was unweaving the 3 different ropes that they have on the single rope. There are 3 when you untwist it. Then once the bell was on and the handle was covered, you can still see a little bit of that red, and I wanted to make sure I cleaned it up. So I'm going to go ahead and take some of this frosted fern that I love that they came out with this season at the Dollar Tree for the winter time. Hot glue it down into place, and then I'm going to come back in with some boxwood. I really do love adding boxwood to a lot of my projects because I think it just makes it look so pretty. And I buy a really long garland strand from Hobby Lobby. And then I'm simply going to just add on a twine bow, and it's ready to be displayed. For this DIY, we are going to be using 5 of these wood blocks from the Dollar Tree, as well as a long skewer stick that we're going to be cutting down into a whole bunch of little nubby pieces. This is going to bring all of these blocks together. So we are going to drill a hole in the first one, only on one side, and then on the other 4, we're going to drill a hole on the top and the bottom. Make sure you're checking to make sure the hole that you're drilling is the right size for your little nubby pieces that we just cut, so we can bring it all together and make it really strong and sturdy. So I went ahead and added in some wood glue into those holes, and then added in the pegs. We're going to call them pegs. I'm going to stop calling them nubby pieces. And then we're going to go ahead and add on some hot glue and bring them together. Now, to make this a little bit different and special, I'm going to just rotate those pieces as I'm putting them on. And then once they're all dry and in place, I'm going to go ahead and use a really pretty light gray color for this. And I'm going to make sure I go all the way around all the sides on the top and the bottom. And I don't want it to be so saturated in gray. I want to make sure that wood is still coming through with a little bit of that wood look to it. Now we're going to take an end of a floral pick piece from the Dollar Tree. I snapped that off, and I'm going to glue that in at the very top because we are going to thread on a wooden bead, and then as well as one of these little finial tops to make the top of this piece look really finished and really beautiful. So go ahead and add some hot glue as you're putting those pieces on to make sure everything is staying in place for you and that it won't come off over time. Once those are all glued in place, go ahead and take a pencil, or if you have a Cricut or a Silhouette, you can also cut out letters if you don't feel comfortable hand painting. I personally love hand painting just because I love the way it looks and it's really therapeutic for me. So I went ahead and sketched out my letters, and we're going to do the word peace. Now, I had a viewer say to me the other day that she's noticed that so many people are doing joy, and I wanted to do this shout out for my friend who asked me to do a peace DIY. I love the word peace. I think it's such a wonderful word to have in our home at Christmas time and all year long. I know that we all need a little more peace in our lives. So once I painted on all of my letters with my fine tip brush in white, I went ahead and moved on to the top. I took off this greenery piece from a bell and I'm going to be using the bell for another DIY later. I tied it on with some twine, and then to finish the look, I added some hot glue to put on a cute bow, and it was ready to display. For this DIY, we are going to be using one of these cone trees that have the tinsel all over it and some yarn of your liking. And we are going to just unravel it, take it all off. Now I am going to take this yarn and I'm going to tie a double knot on it first. And then I'm going to just twist that knot underneath so you don't even see it and it's hidden inside. These trees are so easy to make. And you just pick the color of yarn that you like the most, and you are just going to twist it and wrap it all the way around it. Now when you get to the bottom, it can get a little tricky, so use some hot glue and just take your time going around the bottom a couple of times until you've covered everything up. Make sure you don't wrap it too tight because you will find that you will use more yarn that way. It's better to wrap it loosely so that way it's on there nice, but it's not so tight that it's causing you to use double the yarn. So once you get to the end and you've wrapped it and you don't see anything poking through, go ahead and take that end piece of yarn and pull it underneath and glue it in place. Then up at the top there is already a hole there, so I'm going to just put in one of these shish kebab sticks and I'm going to just cut it down to size because I decided to put a finial on top of one of them and a star on top of the other. I made a large one and a small one by just cutting it down to a smaller size, and then you'll have a set of these trees to display in your home. This DIY is going to be needing 3 of these moving snakes, some of this ribbon from the Dollar Tree, a long skewer stick, and some greenery of your liking. I also ended up adding in some snowflakes you'll see towards the end because you know how I do things. I like to just keep going and just keep playing with it until I get it to a place where I like it to look. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut off the head and the tail to be able to come around in a full circle. Now one of the things you're going to notice is that it's not going to be able to touch all the way perfectly at the ends, so I cut off a piece of a popsicle stick, just enough to be able to create a little spacing in there so that they can really lock in with some hot glue. Once that is all nice and dried and in place, you can see I'm tapping it down in there a little bit. I ended up going ahead and wrapping around it once with some of the ribbon, and then I'm going to bring it up to create a really pretty loop at the top. Now, I'm sure you're all thinking, Heidi, you're burning your fingers. Friends, I really do have the toughest fingers. I used to work at a restaurant when I was a teenager, and I used to carry hot plates all the time, so my fingers can actually handle the heat of the hot glue. It's anytime I ever have it land on my hand or my knuckle, oh, that's when it really hurts. That's just like a funny side note. So here you can see that I went ahead and wrapped that ribbon around, added on some greenery, and I made them different lengths because I wanted it to have like this really pretty hanging wreath effect. And now I'm going to go in with some of these gold glittery berries. I'm going very neutral on this DIY because I know everyone doesn't all do red and green for Christmas. So I'm doing a real neutral palette for this one. But you could paint these green if you wanted to and bring in some red. So once I had the length of those that I wanted, I cut down my skewer stick, and then I am now going to just keep playing with it to get it to how I like. You know, we could stop there or we can go a little further, do a little more. I'm now coming in with some snowflakes and some twine, and I'm looping it through one of the holes on the snowflake, and then I'm just going to do a simple loop around my finger with the 2 pieces of twine and then pull a knot onto it, and then I cut off this extra piece, come back in with my hot glue, and then I just kind of lock it all into place. I don't put a lot, it's just very little, enough that it's not seeable to the eye, but enough to keep it in place. And now I'm just going to figure out the different lengths that I want those snowflakes, bring up that twine towards the top, wrap it around, and then cut off any extra that I don't want to be there. And then at the very end, I'm going to just take some twine, wrap it around to create a nice hanging ability with it, so it's ready to be placed in your home for Christmas. This season, I found the most beautiful farmhouse star sign, and I wanted it because I put it at the top of my Christmas tree. Now, I've been showing it over on my Instagram account, and so many people have been asking me where I got it from, and it just made me think, you know what, I'm going to show you all how to make one yourself. I paid about $20 for mine, which was a lot, because I'd been looking for one that I loved for a long time. But I'm going to show you how you can make it for about $1.50, which is just wild compared to what I paid for mine. So here you can see I'm taking one of these stars from the Dollar Tree, and I'm taking some of these tongue depressor sticks and I'm cutting them down the length of the star point, and then I'm coming back in and strengthening it with some of the popsicle sticks, and I'm just cutting it down to size to where everything is butting up next to each other. Now, a tip that I learned in the corner, I did start cutting it at a very slight angle, just that it nestled in there really nicely. Just keep playing with it until you get it to the size and the fitting that you need. And then I put a very thin bead of hot glue on it so it sticks to the star. And then you can see, like I said a second ago, I'm coming back in with those popsicle sticks and I'm just creating that extra support for the sides so that it doesn't have any issues. Then I'm going to come back in with a grayish brown paint color, and I'm just going to go all along the edges, and any paint that I have, I'm trying to tap it down into any of those cracks and crevices between the sticks. You want to make it look as seamless as possible. Then once I got all that done, I came around the back side and again filled in any cracks I saw with my paint and gave it a nice paint. On the inside, I came in with some white paint. I went along the edges as cleanly as I could. Now you could really go all the details and just get as clean of a line as you want, but I decided to just come back in with a really pretty rope, and I just went along the edges. I actually ended up liking this quite a bit because it made it look even more farmhouse, which was really pretty. So once I went all along the edges and I added in a lot of that hot glue to secure it, but in a neat way. I don't like to be too much hot glue. I like just the right amount to hold it in place and also still do the trick and making it look beautiful. And then I came in with a pen and I'm making my shiplap lines just like on my inspiration at home, and it's ready to put at the top of your tree. I hope you enjoyed today's projects. Now don't forget to go and check out the playlist for the DIY Winter Challenge. And I'm going to recommend a couple videos right here at the end. If you enjoyed this one, you might enjoy some of these as well. Thanks so much for stopping by, and until the next episode, bye friends.